Um, I will be facilitating this session today and a couple more sessions that are building off this. And Barb, if we can go ahead and start the slide share. Thank you. So this is the first of a three-part series that's being offered to support you all in thinking about how to organize more effectively and strategically. And y'all are doing so much powerful organizing already. This series is really just designed to help give you some more shared tools, some shared foundations, some shared analysis for how you're going to be working together. Although I'm going to be using a lot of language around chapters, this is not only geared towards chapters. We're using chapters as an example because organizing happens in formations, organizing happens in community. And so even if you're not part of a chapter, you might be organizing with other people living with HIV, you might be organizing with other Black women, you might be organizing with other PWN members, you might be organizing in your faith community. That's okay, but all of you have some type of political home with PWN. And so we're going to be using chapters as kind of an example of an organizing formation that folks can use to build off of. So if that creates confusion anywhere along the lines, just please go ahead and let me know if you have questions about how this applies to you and the organizing you're doing. And then just a few logistics for today. Some folks have already modeled. Thank you, Jesse, Mona, and Jessica for modeling how to raise your hand to speak up and ask questions or make comments. That helps us know, that you want to say something so we can find a time to call on you. If you are looking for how to do that, if you go to the React button and click on it, you should have an option under there to raise your hand. So, and if you're not able to figure out how to raise your hand, that's okay. You can just pop in chat. I have a comment and I will try to watch the chat and call on you. You can also just come off mute and say, I have a question. And we'll see if it's, a good point for that question or comment to happen. And then this is going to be a very interactive session today. We are going to be moving into breakouts at a couple of times throughout this session and throughout the other sessions. So stay tuned for that to happen. Barb, are there any specific instructions you want to give around breakouts at this time?
Nope. We're gonna try and group people into breakout sessions based on their chapters or being a national member. And so people will have an option to join groups. If you have a challenge getting into a room or a group, we can go ahead and help you get there. So when we get ready for breakout sessions, we will give a few more instructions then.
Thank you. Yep. So pay attention because there are going to be times where you're going to be, invited to join a breakout. So you want to be, kind of like looking out for those so that you can join the room. Okay, good. Anything else on logistics? Questions are welcome throughout, comments are welcome throughout. So, we're here to learn together and to share our knowledge and expertise together. So feel free to hop in anywhere. So let's go to the next slide, please. And then the next one. So for today's session, we're really going to focus on talking about why we organize, the relationship between organizing and building power, and how this connects deeply to our visions for the world. And so we are going to do a little bit of a visioning activity. And I'll talk about that more in a second. We're also going to learn to define organizing. And we're going to learn some criteria to identify an organizing issue. And then in future sessions, we'll be talking about how to apply these organizing principles in action. So how to be really strategic about what we do. So every one of these three sessions is going to build off each other. And so we really hope that folks who are participating today can also participate in the other two sessions. If one of your comrades, chapter members, friends, wasn't able to join today and wants to come to a future session, help remind them to watch the recording so that they understand where they're picking up from for the next session. But this is really a body of work that we are building off of, and that we want to cultivate and hone our organizing skills and our rigor together. Next slide, please. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a visioning activity and exercise. And I want to invite folks to go off camera if you'd like to for this. We're going to take a few minutes to just get grounded. You're welcome to stay on camera or go off camera. And I want to just start us off with a little bit of breathing and getting centered, because there is so much, coming at us in this moment. And we spend a lot of time reacting and responding. I know that for me, sometimes those reactions are to shut down or not process, or those reactions prevent me from dreaming about what's possible and what my communities deserve. And so we want to just spend a little time connecting to our vision and our purpose. And so I invite you to get grounded in some kind of way where you feel rooted to earth. That could be your feet are touching the ground. It could be you're sitting in a chair and your butt, you're feeling where your bones are connecting to the chair, which is your vessel to connect to earth. Do what you can do to create some alignment in your spine. So for me, I'm just reorganizing myself here on this little couch at my Airbnb, and getting grounded in a good position where I can breathe fully, where my lungs are free and my belly is free to move. And come into your body for a moment and feel that part of you that is connected to the earth. Again, it might be your feet are planted, it might be your butt is planted somewhere on a chair or in a seat. Take some deep breaths, just slowly breathing, and start to check out what is going on in your body right now through your breathing. Where is breath moving? Where is breath maybe feeling a little stuck or constrained? Are you able to move your breath freely from your belly up your spine, through your rib cage and your lungs, in and out? Are there some places that you are holding that you can maybe release a little bit? Do you need to adjust your position to be able to release a little bit? Just breathing slowly and quietly in and out. And if your eyes aren't closed, go ahead and close them if you're comfortable with that. So you can go inside. Still breathing, still feeling what is happening in your body, how your breath is moving up and down, in and out. Noticing where you can expand more to take up more space in whatever room or setting you're in. Can you breathe more deeply to grow yourself taller, wider, deeper? Can you expand your rib cage to literally make more space for your heart? Through your breath. And as you're breathing, I want you to think about a child that's in your life, a child that is important to you, a young child if you have one. Maybe it's a grandchild or a great grandchild, or maybe it's somebody else's grandchild or great grandchild, someone that you're close to, somebody who you love. And I want you to think about that child and hold that child as you're breathing in your intention. One of the teachings of many indigenous practices is to live for and practice for the world that we want for future generations. So as you're holding this child, maybe it's maybe it's someone who is a grandchild or a great grandchild or somebody else's child, grandchild, great grandchild. Envision as many generations out as you can. So this child, imagine that we are envisioning a world for their grandchild, for their great grandchild, the world you dream of creating for this person, this child who is so special in your life, the world you dream of, your wildest dreams for their great grandchildren. I want you to really hold the vision of that world and look around it. What do you see in that world? The grandchild's great grandchild. What is this child doing many generations into the future? Where are they? Where do they live? What do they eat? What do you see and hear in that world that you're visualizing? What do you smell? What does the air smell like and taste like and look like? What color is the sky? What is around them, this precious child in the future? What is under their feet? What does the earth look like, smell like, feel like? Can you feel it under their feet, under their toes? If there are other people around them, what are they doing? How are people interacting with each other in this world we vision? What do their lives look like? How do they get health care? How do they survive? How do they eat? What do you notice around them that is making them feel that way and interact that way? What are your wildest dreams for the freedom of this child in the future? What does their freedom feel like? What does it taste like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? Breathing into that and continuing to notice what you can about the world around this child. And then starting to notice again your own body. How is your breathing? What can you do to create more spaciousness and peace in your breathing? How can you draw this vision of the world that you are wanting to create for this child? Can you draw that up through your breath into your heart as you're breathing in? Can you draw it down your body? Can you breathe it out of your body into manifestation? How does your heart feel when you think about this world and dream of this world? Does it change anything in how your body feels? Just noticing. Taking about 3 more deep breaths. And when you're ready, start coming back to the present moment. As you're ready, open your eyes. As you open your eyes, look around you, in the room around you. Notice and name 3 colors you see. Look at them, name them silently to yourself. 3 colors that you see in the room around you, or whatever space you're in. And as you're ready, come back. So this practice of visioning the world we want generations out from us is part of how we create clarity about where we're moving, what we're moving towards, even when conditions feel challenging or impossible. We know deep inside ourselves that something better is possible. And this is why you all are organizers, and this is why you all are doing the work. And so what we're going to talk about is holding a long-term vision for the work that we're doing and understanding the steps that we take today in this lifetime, in this generation, the conditions that we help to create in this lifetime, in our organizing practices, how they set us up, how they set that child up in the future for what we dream of for them, our wildest dreams for them. And we can go to the next slide. So I want to give folks a minute to just like pop in on the chat with anything you want to share about what that was like for you, that visioning exercise. If there's anything you want to share in the chat about that, please go ahead and do that. But we're in this because every single one of us wants to achieve transformation in our world. We understand that some things are really messed up, some things are really broken. We also understand that our communities are powerful and beautiful, and that we want something better for our people. And if we want to achieve transformation in our world, that means that as we organize our work, our campaigns, need to add up to more than the sum of our parts. So that vision, that beautiful vision that you all saw, Jesse, Mona saw a lot of green nature, green light. What else did folks see? Please share some other things you saw in the chat. Anything you want to share with us? I know for me, I saw people sharing. I saw people sharing resources, I saw clean water and clean air, and people sharing food with each other, like literally like harvesting vegetables and giving them to each other. Giving this child, I saw this child like receiving a beautiful peach, like fresh peach, and this like abundance of peaches that they were receiving to eat. Yes, more communities like Plum Village understand more of how to use Buddhist wisdom, different shades of blue with a touch of purple, green grass, blue skies, smell of honeysuckle, picture clouds, barefoot, wooden cars to play with, baby dolls, people sitting on the port making necklaces out of flowers, calmness, not feeling anxious, blue skies, community garden, people gathering food. Yes, these are so beautiful. Thank you all so much for sharing your visions. I'm noticing a lot of resonance among these visions and the world we want to create, and the colors that folks are seeing. Love and joy, sharing. Yes, thank you. So what we want to hold is that this is the beautiful picture that we're moving towards. And our long-term agenda, where we're going, we want to be oriented towards that vision that we're trying to create and acting in ways that bring us towards that vision. And so our organizing work moves us in that direction, right? And we want to be clear about where we're going so we can be clear about how we know if we're actually getting there along the way. We can go to the next slide, please. So in the context of that, sorry, I just lost my screen. In the context of that, we're also going to be thinking about how we build campaigns, but we're not going to get deeply into that today. But just so you know, this is kind of where we're going, is like how campaigns actually get us towards this beautiful vision of people sharing, right? Like that's not separate from why we do this. We do this because we believe in green communities. We believe that our future generations will be safe and healthy and free to be themselves, that Black girls will experience safety, and our queer and trans communities will feel safe wherever they are, whoever they are, wherever they go, that will think about gender completely differently, that we'll be outside of this like capitalist world of of like scarcity mindset and this false ideas that there's not enough food or not enough water or not enough resources for every person on this planet, because there is, or that there's not enough healthcare. centering ourselves in indigenous wisdoms and indigenous healing practices that our people, no matter who we are, have been practicing for tens of thousands of years before this moment. Our people have been taking care of each other and themselves, no matter who we are. That is something that is in us, that is in our ancestors, all of our ancestors, and that is also in our future. And so the question is how we're going to move there, right? So moving to the next slide, please. So let's talk about organizing and how we get there. And so I want to invite folks, in your own words, how would you define organizing? What does organizing mean to you? You can either come off mute to share, or you can drop it in the chat. I can take a couple of.
Okay. This is Stacy. Organizing to me means coming together, and being able to remain on one accord when you're getting something in order to get things accomplished. Because when we're all together and we're all focused on the same task, we can get anything accomplished as long as we're doing it together and just coming together and being on one accord, one mind, one body, and one spirit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Stacy. Tana, I see your hand up as well.
So when I think about organizing, I think about, what am I organizing for? And who do I need to organize with? Is it women just like me? Is it my allies? I need to think about, who do I need to join in on this fight with me to achieve the goal that I'm set out to achieve. But also, the issue, is my issue just as important as their issue? So how do we collaborate and come together? Because we can fight, but we can fight by numbers. We don't have the funds, but we have the bodies.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tana. I hear a lot of resonance between both of your definitions, and what you both said. And some of the things I heard in both of your definitions are having a shared purpose, having clarity about why we're organizing together and collectively, because that's how we're powerful together. Toy, I see your hand as well.
Oh, I was just gonna comment on the organizing, and that's communicating and creating a plan, a goal, and that's part of my definition of organizing. That's all I was wanting to say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, exactly. So organizing isn't a set of like random activities that we're doing. It's very strategic. It's very rigorous. It's very disciplined. It's moving us in a direction. And we're moving together in that direction, and we understand why. So I'm hearing a lot of synergy between the definitions that you all are providing and in what I see here in the chat. So thank you all so much. Common coming together with community, moving forward issues and values. We is better than I, working together, understanding each other, being open, yes, and how we've organized to create PWN USA. These are all great comments. Common purpose, like-minded people. Next slide, please. So here's one definition of organizing. There are many definitions of organizing, but here is one. And can I have a volunteer, maybe someone who hasn't spoken, who'd like to read this out loud to the group?
I'll read it. Definition: defining organizing, a process of building power by involving constituents. I'm tongue tied on that word. I'm sorry. In identifying both the problems they share and the solutions to those problems, identifying the targets that could make those solutions possible, and engaging with those targets through tactics while developing the capacity to take on future problems.
Thank you, Toy. So there's a lot in there. And let's just break it down a little bit in terms of what we're looking at here. So somebody tell me in your own words, like what are some of the values you see in this definition and some of the ideas and themes you're seeing in this definition of organizing?
I see that, building power and communicating involvement. That's creating, just like I said earlier, I think it's coming together, creating goals, and building a plan to work towards those goals. That's how I feel.
Thank you, Toy. What
It
else do you
sounds like abolition work.
say more? What do you mean, Melanie?
To me, abolition work is community, like-minded people, continually educating, continually moving toward creating solutions for problems that exist to create the environment, the safe environment in which new ideas and can come about to expand the community beyond what is already put together by building that power in your smaller self, but you're always working to expand. It's creating to me an alternative situation that is wholesome, that is caring for the whole being and all peoples, while in the midst of systems and structures that are crushing and harming people.
Thank you for that. I see a couple hands up. I want to see if there's anyone who hasn't spoken yet who'd like to share with us anything they're seeing in this definition.
Hey everybody, this is Millicent, she, her pronouns, PWN co-chair, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm looking at problems and solutions, because once you identify and involve your constituents in the process, then you have to look at, who you're going to target, and figure out what's the problem with this target and what solutions are we coming up with to make this target in line with what we're doing. That's what I see.
Awesome. So I'm gonna move on unless anyone has something they really need to add right now, just to keep this moving. But for today's conversation, we're really going to be focusing in today's session on the first three to four things that are bolded here: building power, involving constituency, problems, and solutions. And then in our future sessions, we're going to focus on targets, tactics, and building other types of capacity to take on future problems. So that's really where we're going to be today. But again, I want to highlight some core values that are here that you all have already said in your previous definitions about, doing this. It's collective action, it's common purpose. That's really what's about involving constituency, and identifying problems that are impacting our people, identifying those together, and identifying those solutions together, so that we can be clear again about where we're going. So let's go to the next slide, please. So here are some examples of things that are not organizing. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit about some of these. So you might see some things on here that are really familiar: activism, advocacy, mobilizing, direct service, community engagement, legal action. So the thing about this is like any of these elements can be part of an organizing strategy. In fact, like many of these are important elements that support organizing, but alone, none of these elements are organizing on their own. Without that larger long-term strategy that is taking us somewhere, that incorporates building the power of our people, these are not organizing. And let me break these down a little bit. So for example, why isn't activism or advocacy organizing? Who can answer that? Who has an idea about why?
Because you can do it singularly.
That's right.
Without others.
Exactly. Yep. If this is just a matter of like, I can be an activist, I can contact my legislator, I can be out with a sign, I can be, going to city council meetings to talk about an issue, but I'm doing that alone. If it's not about involving other people and building power together, it's not organizing. Susan, were you going to say something?
Yes, just one thing. I think activism is not organizing because often we go to do something like when we protested to keep the Affordable Care Act. That was in the now. That was in the present. That was then that we had to do that, and not involving strategies for a long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great example, and that speaks really well to mobilizing also, which I wanted to talk about here. So the difference between mobilizing and organizing is really that mobilizing can be one moment in a longer organizing campaign, right? And so the example that Susan just shared with us, like where hundreds of people or thousands of people got mobilized to go to DC, and were asked to come by organizations or groups or entities that were working on a longer term strategy to protect healthcare, but mobilizing a whole bunch of people to come to DC to risk arrest, to get arrested, to create a media moment, and generate a conversation, mobilizing people to bird dog, mobilizing people to get to go sit in at their local senators and Congress members' offices. Those are all examples of great mobilization that was part of a larger organizing campaign, right, to protect the Affordable Care Act and win. And so again, every one of these things, activism, advocacy, mobilizing, have their place, but alone they are not an organizing strategy. They can be part of an organizing strategy. I also want to talk about direct service and mutual aid, because then these often, kind of go hand in hand in various ways. And these are really important components. In fact, the Black Panther Party was really successful as an example of using mutual aid and direct service as part of an organizing strategy. And folks might be familiar with like the free breakfast program, where the Black Panther Party was providing free breakfast to Black children, and it was connected to a larger organizing strategy that was like, we're fighting for recognition of sickle cell and how it's impacting our communities. We're fighting to build real Black political power. We're fighting to create these clinics. They created clinics where they required physicians to come in and go through a significant amount of training to learn how to provide services and culturally relevant care in their communities. They required any physicians that wanted to volunteer in the Black Panther Party clinics to go through like a long and rigorous training to even be able to volunteer, right? So the Black Panther Party was clear about its theory of change and how it was using all these different legs of the stool to work together, and that the free breakfast program was connected to was also part of a bigger organizing strategy and meeting a community need, but was not where they ended their organizing to claim power. And again, and then also, community engagement, legal action. These are all pieces. These can be like actions that are taken or that are used, but alone they are not an organizing strategy. So any of these can be components, but they are not the organizing plan. Are there any questions about this? Let's go to the next slide, please. So also there are so many different types of organizing, and I know many folks here are involved in lots of different types of organizing. There's community organizing, there's organizing at like a geographical level, like a neighborhood level or a precinct level or a state level or a country level. There's electoral organizing, which I know some folks are doing different kinds of like voter engagement activities and organizing on elections. There's labor organizing. We just saw today the the 7 major unions come out demanding an end to providing war weapons to Israel. That's a huge victory in the pro-Palestine fight, and and fighting for how the U.S. is directly complicit in the genocide that is going on right now in Palestine and Gaza. And this was a historic moment where 7 labor unions came together, 7 major labor unions came together today to demand an end to these types of contracts and funding. That's been a long game to get there. There's also organizing on common interests, issues, or identities. So people living with HIV are organizing, Black women are organizing, TGNC folks are organizing. Like there could be a lot of different identities that people may be organizing within, and maybe more than one, often more than one, right? Because none of us are single identity humans in terms of how we show up, and we're differently impacted in relation to power. And that's where identity-based organizing can really be powerful, is understanding how we sit in relation to power and what solutions look like for our communities. And then issues like somebody, I think Melanie brought up abolition earlier, gun control, reproductive rights, faith communities, maybe organizing in particular ways. So all of these are forms of organizing, and there are many more forms as well. Next slide, please. So some key elements of organizing that we've already talked about a lot of these. You've already named many of these, but just to kind of recap, organizing has clear long-term objectives, like a clear plan about where to go that many people share in that vision for where we're going and why. And that takes work to get there, right? I know y'all have like done that, and it's not always easy to figure out where are we all going together. It definitely doesn't work if like 2 people are like, hey, here's where we're going, everybody come along. Like that's not what organizing is, right? We want to engage our base, our constituency in co-creating a vision for where we're going, being clear about that, being clear about what the goals are, and involving people who are directly impacted by that issue and building their power. Organizing is about winning. It's not just about dreaming, it's actually about winning. And so it's about like making sure that we're moving in a direction where we can actually track and measure the results of our work. We don't want to be just kind of like organizing abstractly. Like we have this idea that if we talk to enough people about something, things will change. That's not organizing. People need to understand what victory looks like and feel victory along the way. Organizing is also very clear about who can bring change, right? So when we go to, when we're upset about the way that our governor is handling a contract with an energy corporation that resulted in like a blackout all across our state, or like people not having access to electricity and internet and water and heat and air conditioning, and cost people like the contents of the refrigerator, and it's the governor's fault because of the contract that got negotiated by the governor with the energy company. And then we go to City Hall and like have a rally outside City Hall. Is that getting us what we want? I see people shaking their heads. Yeah, it's not. Because why, Tana? Why'd you shake your head on that one?
I shake my head on that one because they're not hearing all of the voices. And when we talk about the elements of building power, that's relational organizing also, but bringing the voices and the stories in front of our legislators is what gives us power, but also the main power is the power to vote.
Mm. Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about forms of power. So thank you for bringing that up as well. And in that example, I just told you that the governor is the one who negotiated that contract. And so why are we shouting outside City Hall? The governor doesn't work out of City Hall. Also, City Hall is a building, not a target. Targets are always people. And we'll talk more about that in the next session as well. So organizing is really clear about who can give us what we want and how are we going to get to them. What's the best way to pressure them? And that's how we think about like tactics, activities that make sense. Like maybe the governor isn't moved by letter writing. Maybe the governor is actually moved by what the governor's mom hears at church. Maybe if the governor's mom can be pressured, that's actually the way to get what we need. So organizing is also strategic, and organize always incorporates some kind of self-correcting feedback loop along the way, debriefing, evaluation. So as we're looking at points of progress along our organizing strategy, we can evaluate. And when I say we, I mean everybody who's involved in the campaign, right? This isn't just about 1 or 10 people having an opportunity to debrief and think about, are we getting closer to what we wanted? We need to bring everybody along. That's the biggest thing about organizing, is like we really want to harvest the knowledge, expertise, wisdom of our communities. Our communities know what the problems are. Our communities know what the solutions are. Our communities know if things are getting better for them or not. So we want to make sure that anyone who has like taken action as part of our campaign is able to participate in this evaluation, to think about, did we achieve our goals? If we didn't achieve our goals, was it still worth it what we did? Or do we need to change the way we're doing things next time? So we're gonna just do a little activity next. Next slide, please. So let's look at a few different scenarios. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer to read each of these out loud, maybe 3 volunteers, and maybe 3 people who haven't spoken yet. So can I get a volunteer to read out scenario A? Stephanie.
Scenario A PWN chapter got 5,000 voters to the polls in 2020. In 2022, they mobilized 7,000 voters to participate in the midterms. And in 2024, that same PWN chapter got 10,000 voters to the polls in 2024 in a key swing district.
Woohoo! That's awesome. Thank you for reading that. Okay, cool. Wanda, will you read us scenario B? Wanda, if you're speaking, you might be muted. I'm not hearing you.
Apologies. Okay. A PWN chapter is part of an HIV decriminalization coalition that successfully lobbied their state legislators to pass a resolution to study the impact of HIV criminalization laws on people living with HIV in their state. They plan to use this data to support ongoing legislative advocacy.
Woohoo! That's awesome. Check out these PWN chapters just rocking and rolling. And thank you for reading that, Wanda. I see there's a few folks with their hands up. I'm just going to go with the first 3 who raised their hands. So forgive me, but I will come back to others who are volunteering later for other things. So Sarah, Miss Sarah Jackson, will you read us scenario C?
Okay. A PWN chapter got 1,500 voters to the polls in 2020. Then in 2021, was able to get 50 of those same voters to contact their legislators who were on the fence to protect abortion access. The abortion access legislation passed by 3 votes. In 2023, 2 of the voters from 2020 also got involved in the phone banking with the chapter. In 2024, that chapter mobilized 5,000 pro-choice voters to the poll.
Awesome. Thank you to our 3 volunteers. That was awesome. And now I want to invite everybody who heard those scenarios to just reflect on these for a minute and tell us which of these are organizing and how do we know? What are your clues that any or all of these are organizing strategies? And folks can either share in the chat or you can come off mute to share with us what you think about this.
I can start. So when I think about it, the first year, chapters got, say for example, scenario A, 5,000. The next year, it kept increasing. The more people got to the polls to vote. And in 2024, that really doubled the number. And even with scenario B, the DCRIM, the way it organized, they were able to get the data that they needed for scenario B. Started the same thing in scenario C. It just keeps growing and growing.
Thank you. Jessica, I see your hand up.
I'm more so leaning toward scenario B, because scenario B had what's the word? They had a focal point, which was the state legislator, and that's what they concentrated on. So that's why I went with the scenario B, how they got together and they lobbied and got her done. Thank you.
Thank you. I see some folks dropped into the chat scenario A. Does anyone want to come off mute and tell us why you said scenario A?
Allie from Shreveport, PWN, Louisiana, PWN National. I said A and C because it was directly with people, and I said that B was not really organizing. It was mobilizing because it was with the organization and not really direct with people. That's what I said.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share their perspective on these? Which of these are organizing and how do we know? I think I see.
This is Marcia Gillette. I'm sorry. Scenario A looks like it's mobilizing because they work together to get the 5,000 voters. That takes strategy. And strategy is part of organization. And they build upon that and continue to increase those numbers. So again, that takes organization to continue to do that.
Anyone else want to share? One last comment.
I will if no one else has their hand up.
Go for it, Susan.
I picked scenario B because there's a whole thread there in long-term planning and the people that are tapping into in that long-term planning, the people who would be called the experts who already have had situations that they would know to continue to make sure the group has all the right language and input, and they kept working on this, and they are going to continue. They're still planning. They're still together with their heads in their think tanks, planning to use all the data, everything they gather each time to support this ongoing legislative advocacy. So that's why I picked B.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for your engagement with this. I would argue that any of them might be organizing, but I don't believe that there's enough information in here to show you that A and B are organizing. And here's why. There's both A and B are not showing us how they're building long-term power. They're not showing us whether and how they are involving folks or following up with folks to build something longer term. They're both are showing us, they're showing us different things, right? So scenario A, I think somebody identified that this is really focusing a lot on mobilizing. It's not showing us whether they're even, you know, mobilizing voters in the same area or on the same set of issues, or if it's the same set of voters that these are, is this 10,000 voters, 10,000 brand new voters? Or does it include the 5,000 from 2020? Are they building off their work? Is it moving towards, you know, a long-term strategy? Similarly with B, what we don't know in B is, and again, this doesn't mean that these aren't organizing. It just means that we don't know from the information provided here. In B, we don't know how the community that's being directly harmed by these laws is really being engaged in a deep way around some of this work that's happening. We don't know if there's you know a commitment to building power or just a commitment to legislative advocacy, which can happen without building power. So lots of groups, like think about groups, you know, that are big national names that have a big impact, like the Sierra Club or like moveon.org, or, you know, groups that you see that are having a big influence, or really think about groups on the other side too. Think about groups like the Heritage Foundation that is putting forth Project 2025. So they have like an ambitious legislative and policy agenda, but are they committed to building power along the way? We just don't know. And some of them are absolutely not committed to building power. They don't want power to be built. They're going to use the power they already have through money and institutions to make things happen. So we don't know in scenario B. We don't have enough information to know if power is being built. Scenario C, again, you know, there are things that could be added to clarify whether this is really an organizing strategy. To me, it has a few more elements that show us that they have a plan, a longer term plan. So some of the clues I see in scenario C are that this chapter, even though it mobilized a smaller number of voters to the polls than the chapter in scenario A, they followed up with those voters and got 50 of them to take another kind of action the following year. 50 of those same people who they got to vote, they got them to take another kind of action. That action was successful. It caused this abortion access legislation to pass by 3 votes. Then some of those voters even got involved in the activities of the chapter, involved in phone banking with the chapter. And then in 2024, that chapter mobilized, again, a smaller number than in scenario A, but they mobilized pro-choice voters specifically to the polls. So they were clear about the issue they were working on and are able to show results on that issue. So you know, it's not to say that scenarios A and B aren't organizing. We just don't know from this limited information that was provided. Scenario C is giving us a few more clues that this might be a real, there's like a real organizing strategy here. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about this?
So, Nana, can I ask you a question? So, when I think about scenario C, so what I think I hear you say is you actually had two voters join on the abortion, on the legislator, but they also joined the chapter to build more power in the work itself, as far as phone banking, for example. Did I get that? Am I getting that? Okay, thanks.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right on, Tana. So part of how we build power is by building the number of people who are involved in our activities and who are committed to our vision with us, right? And so that's showing you that like two of these folks who we just turned them out to vote in 2020, but now they're also starting to get involved in turning other people out to vote because they're like, oh, I see what y'all are doing. I believe in what y'all are doing. This is important to me, the impact that you're having. And so I want to join you and help to make this possible. Great clarification. So let's go to the next slide. I'm going to move through these next couple of slides a bit quickly. And then I do want to give you all a little bio break because I know we've been together for a minute before we come back and talk about cutting an issue. So just briefly, let me talk about organizing and power. We can't talk about organizing without talking about power. Organizing is all about power. And I know some folks referenced this in the beginning, but a lot of times what we talk about with organizing is that, you might have seen that little fish, big fish diagram that's often used when we're looking at what organizing means. So if you're not familiar with it, it's like you have the minnows and you have the shark, basically. And if you have like one minnow going up against a shark, the minnow's going to lose. But if you organize all your minnows to chase this shark in a formation together, the minnows can win. And so think about it as, any dynamic in the world where power is unequal. So big corporations, fighting a big corporation to get their toxic environmental mess out of your community. One person can't go up against a corporation alone, but a community can, a neighborhood can, and people have, gone after corporations and gotten them to clean up Superfund sites or to move a refinery out of their community, or things like that. So organizing is fundamentally about shifting the relations of power. And we do that through people power. We do that by getting ourselves together. So how does power show up? Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, actually 2 slides. Can you go 2 slides? I'm gonna skip this one for time. Yeah, thank you. So there are 3 faces of power that organizing frameworks kind of look at. And that is the power to win our demands. That's organizing people and resources for direct political action. That's a lot of what we do. That's a lot of what y'all are doing when you're, turning folks out to be involved in the HIV decriminalization movement, or you're organizing around protecting access to Medicaid or stopping them from defunding Ryan White Part D or things like that. The power to win these demands, right? That's kind of how we often traditionally think about organizing. But there are 2 other elements of power that we often don't talk about as a progressive community. We don't talk about them enough, and I wanted to uplift them here because these are places where the conservative / regressive movement is winning. And we need to, I think it will benefit us to be clear that these are also part of the terrain that we need to be considering with our organizing. So that is the power to drive the agenda and build movement infrastructure, and the power to shape common sense, like basically like thought leadership power, the power to make meaning on the terrain of ideology and worldview. And these are kind of big words, but let me talk through them a little bit. These 3 faces of power are interrelated. You know how hard it is to organize, for example, on abortion, when what we're hearing, the narratives are like they have totally claimed language like pro-life for one side of things. When what they actually mean is they mean anti-choice and anti-freedom. And when they're talking about pro-life, like whose life are they really talking about? But anybody who hears the phrase pro-life has an automatic assumption about what that means. And so that's an example of how the right wing has really claimed meaning of a particular word and how people think about it. And now we're on a back foot having to fight against that and be like, no, we're pro-life too. We're actually pro the lives of people who can get pregnant, being able to live the lives they want. And of those kids who might be born, being able to have a life with safe housing and healthcare and nutrition and school and a place to live and everything they deserve. And that's what our whole movement is about. Our whole movement is actually pro-life. Like our whole movement, you all shared your visions of these green, beautiful futures that are the pro-life future. That is the world we want. Their agenda is actually to hate and kill and destroy anybody who's not white, cis, heteronormative. And we're clear about that. When we talk about being pro-life, we're talking about being pro-Black and pro-brown and pro-queer and pro-trans and pro-communities that are being harmed, surviving and thriving and dreaming and living in dignity and freedom. And so the idea, just the idea that they have claimed that term shows us how we're losing. And so we really need to think about these three faces of power as being interrelated. And the reason that Project 2025 is where it is today is because of how effective the right has been in building an agenda for 50 plus years. They have built, when we say driving the agenda, like this second point here, power to drive the agenda, building movement infrastructure. Some of what the institutions affiliated with Project 2025, like the Heritage Foundation, others have been doing is literally building infrastructure. They have been placing young conservative white male kids mostly in like internships in congressional offices on the Hill since like the 80s. They have been creating funded fellowships. They have been targeting targeting educational institutions around what kind of information can be shared and provided, and working to get like quote critical race theory out of schools and things like that. So they have been building infrastructure for a long time to get to where they are today. This didn't just happen. Project 2025 did not come out of nowhere, and it did not just come out of the last couple of years. This has been a decades-long ideological fight of deliberately building movement infrastructure on the right to be able to do this. The rise of the Tea Party was part of this, if y'all remember that. The like Trumpism also didn't come out of nowhere. MAGA didn't come out of nowhere. These things are all like part of an infrastructure that has been building over time, and the far right was not ready in 2016 to claim governing power when Trump won, and that's why they didn't have a Project 2025 yet. But now they're ready. And they understand, exactly what they're going to do on days 0 and 1, and days 0 and 1 start on November 6th, by the way, not in January. So we have to be waging our fights, our organizing fights on multiple levels and understanding how these things are interconnected with each other. So winning demands, again, is about organized people, organized money. This is where most of our organizing focuses and what we usually think about. The infrastructure part is the movement building work. This requires intentionality. It requires time and resources. It doesn't just happen. So when a lot of people are mobilized, like in this moment right now around Palestine, in this moment right now around the presidential campaign, we need infrastructure that can channel individuals and groups into long-term sustained political engagement that's going to build long-term power. And so that's where alliances come in. That's why strategic coalitions come in. That's where leadership development come in. So I want you all to think about like ideas you have of where infrastructure has been built, movement infrastructure has been built that you know of, especially on the progressive side of things, ideas you can think about. So just think about that for a minute, drop it in the chat if you have some thoughts on that, examples that you can think about. I would name, for example, like the PLHIV caucus, I think is a great example of doing that in the HIV space, where a number of networks of people living with HIV came together and said, we're going to collaborate on putting forth a policy agenda that's really centered in the needs of people living with HIV, because we were trying to claim a certain type of power within the HIV policy arena that is often very focused on people who are not living with HIV. And we said, we're coming together, we're going to sustain this PLHIV caucus so that we can fight together. And we're going to contribute to that caucus to making it powerful as networks organizing together, the Zero Project and PWN and 5SS and Positively Trans and others really coming together for that. And then this idea of ideology and worldview, this is really about meaning that gets shaped, and people consciously and unconsciously have understandings of the world, and that shapes also what we believe is politically possible. So think about how the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, changed our whole collective thinking of the conditions of possibility around defunding the police. And by putting that demand forward and pushing what we believed was politically possible, like people didn't really believe that was politically possible. And, you know, there are ways in which there have been wins and there are ways in which there have been losses along the way. But certainly it changed the whole conversation so that we, like, everybody knows what we mean when we say defund the police. We're talking about tearing down this racist institution that was literally built on the KKK and creating different avenues for taking care of our people that don't rely on policing practices to address like a mental health crisis, for example, or substance use, for example, or housing insecurity, for example. Like it is possible to defund the police. Places have done it. Minnesota, Minneapolis was really successful in moving money out of their police budget. So that's this idea of like being able to generate ideas of what is politically possible. And so often who controls like making meaning and ideology and thought leadership often comes from sources like the mainstream media or like Fox News, or these like mouthpieces that go on to news shows and like regurgitate ideas that they want people to just internalize and not question. And so when you think about like the American dream, that's a really common ideology that people hold, that we all hold in some type of way. This idea that there's like an American dream that is possible if you just work hard enough. But who is that American dream available to? Well, now regressives, otherwise known as conservatives, are trying to tell us that that's only for it was always only for, and they're becoming much more explicit about that this was always only for, white, cis, hetero people of a certain class who belongs here, where whiteness gets codified. And we see this playing out right now, even in the conversation about Kamala for president, where she's being called the DEI candidate. Well, why would that be? Only if whiteness is what's normalized is Kamala the DEI candidate. Only if male patriarchy and like white male leadership is what's normalized does Kamala become the DEI candidate. So these are just like implicit ideas and assumptions that are moving through the consciousness of people all the time. And part of our job as organizers is to create new conditions of consciousness for people to dream and imagine what is possible. And so going back to our visioning exercise from the beginning, we have to really think about how our organizing campaigns play on that field as well and create a compelling vision that people can buy together of, and that is not about these dominant narratives. You know, Obama was asked to provide a birth certificate. Do y'all remember that? Because of this inherent idea that like that would never happen if he wasn't a Black man. But this inherent idea that like the leadership of the U.S. imperial empire is only available to a white cis hetero male, basically, is what was at play. And so so we as organizers, as progressive organizers who understand that we have a different dream for our people, we have to be thinking about these three different areas that we play in and how our campaigns move us on all of those at the same time. I know we've been going for a minute. I just want to check if folks need a little bio break. Do people need to step away and take a little bio break for a couple minutes? Okay, if not, I'll keep going. Okay, cool. So, so one more thing I want to say as you're thinking about how to orient your organizing campaigns. We can go to the next slide. Is to really think about who you are. And when I say you, that means the collective you, the collective we, right? So what does organizing look like for PWN chapters, for PWN members? It should be grounded in the mission, the vision, the theory of change of the groups that you're organizing with. That's the first place to start, right? So if you're clear that like what we're here to do is build power for people living with HIV, especially from communities that are most at risk of structural harm, which is Black folks, queer folks, trans folks, Indigenous folks, people of color, low-income folks. We know who those people are. If we're clear about that, then we're clear about who gets centered in our organizing. And then again, you know, ideology and values, like should always guide what our organizing looks like. So what are some examples of ideology and values that you know PWN holds? Folks can just throw these in the chat. Some examples you're thinking of that are underpinnings of how PWN folks might organize and move. I put a couple examples in here, like abolitionist, anti-racist. Yes, MIPA. Thank you, Crystal. Totally. So making sure that people living with HIV are really centered. Using an anti-racist lens. Yes. Yep. What else? Elevating gender justice. Thank you.
We say over here, no turfs, swerfs, or herfs.
Thanks, Jenny. Can you break that down for us?
So no, you know, trans exclusionary people, nope. No sex work exclusionary people, and herfs, because we see it a lot in my community, no HIV exclusionary people. Like we don't, if there's turfs, swerfs, or herfs, we're probably not going to be a good match, and we're going to adjust accordingly.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I see some others getting shared here. Black and trans liberation, MIPA, focusing on intersectionality, gender justice lens. What else? Anything else? So what I really want to get across here is that there isn't one formula for organizing, because organizing is so personal and organizing is so political, and organizing is about power, and organizing is about the people that we are organizing with and whose power specifically we are trying to build in the process. And so so we need to be really clear about ourselves. We need to be clear about what experience, expertise, values, ideology, our commitments, our political commitments we're bringing into our organizing work. There can be like 500 ways to solve a problem that we see, but only a few of them are really going to be grounded in who we are and how we move and what are the best solutions for us to focus on, right? So your personal leadership style, your base and your constituency, your people, whose power are you trying to build? So that's a question for y'all. So for a PWN chapter, whether you're in one or not, because I know everybody here is like affiliated with PWN. For a PWN chapter, who's the base? Who are the people?
The community is the base.
What do we mean by the community?
For us here in Houston, it's the people living with HIV, people in marginalized communities, us, women, Black women, and people living in underserved communities.
Yep. Thank you for that, Angela. Anyone else have another example?
But also,
well, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was curious to know, what do you suggest to do when people are not politically driven? I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, and a lot of people are not really focused on politics. And that's the challenge here. And I'm trying to, I guess I'm wondering, do anyone have any strategies on how do you get people motivated about, what's to come and what's important?
I love that question. That's such a beautiful question. Was that LaTanya?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm gonna come back to this question of base, but I do want to make sure we address that question that you're raising. So does anyone have ideas or strategies for LaTanya? Let's take a minute to just see if folks have suggestions on that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say for since we live in Houston, I think asking community, what issue is important to you? Not the issue that is important to me, but seeing how, say, for example, we might say healthcare, and they might say, okay, my kid's education. That is a reason why you might want to get involved and get out to vote, because a lot of us feel like our children's education is on the chopping block in southern states. So just really trying to get them to talk about issues that are important to them. That has helped us a lot, because we hear all the time, my vote don't matter. So we just counteract and say, well, what issues are important to you?
Thank you for that. And that's, you're leading us really well into the next segment. So I'm just going to say one more thing about the base, and then let's move there. I also want to note that we are getting close to time. So we're actually going to skip breakouts, but continue to have an interactive conversation for the rest of this time. We're going to skip a little bit of the content too, just to keep us moving through this, because there's one more section I want to cover with y'all today that speaks exactly to what LaTanya and Tana are talking about. So just the last note on who is your base. Thank you, Angela, for being clear when I asked you who is the community, because the more clear we can be about who our base is and who we're accountable to, that tells us exactly whose issues, leadership, needs, problems, and solutions are being prioritized. So we want to be as clear as possible about who our base is. I also saw Susan raise the question of, are our allies part of the base? Yes, if you decide that they are, then they are. And usually they are, because we're building a growing base, right? So we in PWN, we kind of tend to define allies as people who are not living with HIV, but who are down for, are impacted by the same issues, are down to solve the same problems, and are going to throw down and are committed to doing that in line with PWN values, which include MIPA. So that's when they become an ally or accomplice, is when they're committed to the same set of values. And I think we should be clear that sometimes there might be people living with HIV who aren't committed to the same set of values. And are they really our allies if they're working in opposition to us? So yeah, being as explicit as possible about who your base is. I'm going to keep it moving if that's okay. I do see another raised hand. I will come back to you if you could just hold that for a little bit so I can try to get through one more section today.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was going back with what she was saying, the lady from Mississippi. I was just giving a quick strategy. David Banner, who's a rapper that's from Mississippi, we had a voter registration drive a few years ago with him. He's very good about being a gatekeeper that helps people encourage other people to vote. If you could contact his publicist or someone in his camp, that would be a good person to reach out to try and encourage people to get out to vote. Because sometimes when you have people that are of celebrity status, they can encourage other people to get out to vote.
Thank you for sharing that. Feel free to drop any additional resources or ideas into the chat. And now we're going to talk just like really quickly about how we actually operationalize this. And we will be following up on this a lot more in the next 2 sessions. So organizing and building power happens through campaigns. And you can go to the next slide. Campaigns are really how we make our movements more powerful to solve the problems we see in the world. And so a lot of times problems that we see can feel so overwhelming and so intractable, and we feel really defeated and like, how do we make a difference in this? And so campaigns are really how we break up that problem into digestible blocks. So we're like, I see this beautiful world that I want for my great-grandchild's great-grandchild. I see it, I can taste it, I can smell it, I know what it looks like, I know what it feels like. But today I feel so stuck because our healthcare system is a mess and it's just getting worse. And, you know, they're talking about deporting my friends and my queer and trans community is being like legislated. They're trying to like legislate them out of existence. And so like, how do we move? How do we get towards this world that we want? Campaigns is our building blocks to get there. You can go to the next slide, please. So in our vision for the future, we really want to get as concrete as possible. We want to clarify our goal. We want to clarify the problem, and we want to think about solutions. And we're going to skip the activity on this and move and keep moving. This is a quote by Frederick Douglass. Sorry that it is a little bit blurry. If anyone is able to read it and wants to read it out loud, can I ask for somebody who maybe hasn't spoken a lot to read this out loud?
I will. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will.
Please take a minute to just like let that sit. I have goosebumps. That quote always gives me goosebumps. It is so powerful. Yeah, thank you, Crystal. Same. So power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did. It never will. Why would the white male patriarchy give up power? That's why we have to be really clear and explicit about our demands, and also really clear that sometimes we're not just here to play respectability politics and just do things the nice way. That's part of what he's talking about here, right? Like if we talk about we want freedom, we dream of freedom, we have to understand that that's going to come with some thunder and lightning. That's going to come with agitation. That might come with some broken windows, because windows are not people. People are dying. And so sometimes we have to organize, we have to build. Building may also mean dismantling things that are not working, that were never set up for our communities, that were in fact set up to harm our communities along the way. And we have to be really clear about where we're going and what we want. power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. So let's talk next about how we get to our demands. Next slide, please, and the next slide. So framing your demand is what's called cutting the issue in organizing lingo often. That might be a phrase you've heard. And this is a quote from another organizer, George Gohl: "Organizing works when we turn unwieldy problems into actionable solutions and pressure specific people with the power to enact those solutions." This is basically saying the same thing we keep saying. There's a problem. It seems big. It seems intractable. It seems like we don't know how to tackle it, but we figure out solutions that folks can take action on, and we figure out who can enact those solutions, and then we're very focused on pressuring those people to give us what we want. We don't just do rando shit. Excuse my language. We are focused and organized and disciplined and strategic about how we're going to get what we want. Next slide, please. So the difference between problems and issues. So problems are a broad area of concern. Like, here are some examples: unaffordable healthcare, racism, police brutality, HIV criminalization, unaffordable housing. Problems can be local, they could be national, they could be global. Pedestrians are getting hit by cars in my neighborhood. That's a problem, right? These problems can feel overwhelming. The issue is a solution or a partial solution to the problem. So somebody give me an example of what it could be a solution for pedestrians or getting hit by cars in my neighborhood. There's a bunch of different solutions we could have for that. What are some examples? Just drop some in the chat.
Speed bump.
Oh yeah, a speed bump. Thank you. Yep, add some speed bumps. Great example. What else? Signal lights. Yep. Yep. Close the street to cars. Yep.
My goddaughter wrote somebody years and years and years ago because the kids in her neighborhood walked and they didn't have a sidewalk. I think she wrote her local city council, and this kid was like 8 or 9 at the time. And she wrote them and told them, my friends are getting hit, and maybe if maybe if you would build some sidewalks in my neighborhood, me and my friends and my schoolmates can walk safely to and from school. They now have sidewalks in their community, and it's all because of this 9-year-old kid. And this
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that example of advocacy and activism. So there are so many, right, potential solutions, partial or whole solutions to this problem. Slow signs, safety patrol, speed bumps, sidewalks, signal lights, close the street to cars. Some of these are partial solutions. Some of these are solutions that put the onus on the driver. Some are more structural solutions. Barb said, close the street to cars. That's a great example of like a structural solution. Like, this street is just going to like not be accessible to cars, because maybe there'll be like big cones where they can't get through or something. This is like a bike street and a pedestrian walking street. So there are lots of different ways to tackle a problem. And your job as an organizer is to figure out which solution you're going to focus on. That is your how you build your campaign. Let's go to the next slide, please. So again, there might be dozens of solutions to every problem. If the problem is lack of affordable healthcare, there could be solutions that are from like small things to big things, like, oh, we need nationalized healthcare, universal healthcare. Oh, my state needs to expand Medicaid so that we, touch that problem by like expanding the number of people who can be covered by Medicaid. That's like a partial solution. Maybe the reason that there's not affordable healthcare is because I have a local clinic where people living with HIV can go and they qualify to get services there, but they're getting discriminated against and stigmatized. And so that's another way we could solve that problem in my community. Maybe the problem is like dental care is making people bankrupt. So we need Ryan White to cover better dental care. Like, so there's so many different ways, right, to come at a problem. And we have to figure out the right solution for us as organizers to focus on. Next slide, please. So the issue you focus on, you want it to be really specific. The problem is abstract. The problem feels like something we don't know how to tackle. The issue is something that people can grab onto and say, I understand what that is. I feel it. I understand how this is a solution and why this is a solution. And this matters to me and I want to get it. So when you choose an issue, when you choose the right issue, you give people something to organize around and get involved in. When you campaign on an issue, not a problem, not the problem of like lack of healthcare, but the solution of this is what it's going to look like when we win our campaign. People are much more likely to align their efforts and focus their power on specific decision makers and policies. So if you're saying what we need most, what PWN in our community has decided we need most is we need a new clinic in this area because folks are having transportation problems to get to healthcare. And the most important thing to us is this clinic. That's what we have decided we need. Then people can focus on and organize on that problem and on the specific people who can make it happen and the policies who can make it happen. Whereas if you're just campaigning on the problem, it becomes really hard to prioritize resources and tactics. And any tactic, and a tactic is basically like an activity that you use to get towards your goal, could be like as legitimate as any other tactic. So you might have like 50 people show up at a city council meeting to talk about the clinic you want, but maybe the county is actually the ones who are making the decisions about that clinic. And they're the ones you need to be focusing on. So we'll talk about that again more in the next training, but let's go to the next slide, please. So the issue that you choose to work on should make sense for who is organizing, for how you organize, for the values, expertise, and influence you collectively bring. And so the issue a PWN chapter takes on should really help you focus on where the change to solve the problem you're looking at can be identified, can be achieved by the people you have. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of saying it again, a different way. The way you cut the issue is like the slice of the problem that you're going to tackle. If the problem is a big pie, whatever that problem is, the slice that you're going to take on is your cut of the issue. It's your piece of pie that you're going to work on. And it should leverage your group's strengths, your resources. It should build power. It should build your base, and it should create an impact that will lead to even bigger changes in the future. And I'm just going to give you a little preview of criteria, and we'll go into depth in this more in the next session, but I'll also share this around as a follow-up. So the issue you select should meet most or all of these criteria. And this is from the Midwest Academy. And I'll give folks a minute to just like look at this and process it. But basically, it should result in real improvement in people's lives. So if this is like the problem is pedestrian safety on my block, then people should feel that the solution that you're proposing is really going to keep their kids safe and keep their neighborhood safer. You want it to be winnable. You want it to be deeply felt and widely felt. That means like a lot of people care about this and some people care about it a lot. Both of those things should be true. A lot of people need to care about it and some people need to deeply care about it enough to take action and get organized. It should alter the relations of power in the long run. It should give people a sense of their own power when you figure out how to tackle it. So again, this is where we don't just want to focus on behind the scenes writing letters, but we want people to like gain and build their power in the process of organizing on this issue, because that's setting us up for our next fight. I'm going to skip the rest of these for time and just move quickly to slide 35. And then for folks who want to stay on a little bit longer, we can talk about any questions. So just kind of recapping what we covered today. We organize so we can build long-term power to solve problems that are impacting our communities. And our communities are the ones who identify both the problems and the solutions. We don't do that for them. We do that with them. So this goes back to Latanya and Tana, what you were saying about recruiting folks in. People are most likely to come in when they are also asked to contribute to the vision, to identifying the problem and identifying the solution so that the problem and the solutions are meaningful to them. And it's not only about what we think is like a political strategy or a political campaign. Sometimes, you know, we might be saying, oh, the most important thing for us to organize on is like, is this you know, is like vote suppression, but maybe the thing that's impacting people the most in your neighborhood is a housing crisis or some kind of like, you know, new thing that was built that's like shining light into their homes at night, and so they're not getting a good night's sleep or their kids aren't able to sleep. So we have to really listen to the community and understand what the problems are and also understand what the solutions are. We want to always hold a long-term view that is bringing together different strategies, different activities that are moving us to an overarching goal. We can win more and more effectively when we focus resources on a smaller piece of the pie than when we try to tackle the whole pie at the same time. And that piece of the pie that we choose to tackle is really about like, what's the right slice for our group, right? So that's where cutting an issue comes in. Let's go to the next slide really quick. So we do have another session a week from today where we'll go a little bit more into cutting an issue, and we'll also talk about who can give us what we want and how to pressure them, tactics to use to pressure them. But I have a little extra time if folks are able to stay and want to talk at all about questions. So I'm happy to stay around and take some questions or do some discussion.
Thank you so much, Nana. That was absolutely incredible. We have a couple of questions about there being a recording. Yes, there will be a recording. We will share that tomorrow. We'll also send out the link to the evaluation. If you have a few minutes to go ahead and just fill out the evaluation, please do so tonight. Just lets us know how we did or how we might need to shift our conversation for next week. Thank you, everyone, for staying on. Thank you, Nana, for that incredible overview of organizing and helping us to kind of clarify how we're talking about organizing versus advocacy, how we come at it from a values-based, and especially how we think about the changes that we can make for future generations. This is powerful work, but it also is heavy work. And it can be a lot. So really just so glad to have you back here sharing with us. All righty. So if people want to go ahead and step off, now is when we can go ahead and do that. We will, if everyone is okay, we'll keep the recording going so that if there are questions or discussion about some of what Nana talked about, you will be able to listen in if you need to step away and take care of something else this evening. But once again, just let's come off of mute and do a woo! Dana, it is so good to have you back here, and thank you for this.
Thank you. So
We love
looking forward
you.
to the next two.
Yes,
Thank you,
Ooh, I
Barb.
needed
This was
that.
really nice. Thank
Awesome,
you.
awesome,
Seeing
awesome.
everybody.
Love you, Nana.
I love y'all. It's always good to see you. You inspire me so much.
It was amazing, Nana.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
I'll see you next week.
Much love, y'all.
Much love to everybody. Don't forget to fill out your evaluation, please. Happy birthday, Millicent.
Is it in the chat?
Yeah, and we'll put the evaluation link in and we'll send it out to people again tomorrow. Nana, while people are signing off or sticking on to ask questions, If you want, I can go ahead and start us off because I've got one that always I puzzle about is I have done some organizing, which is when you see people getting stuck in the problem as opposed to talking about the issue, what are some questions that can help move them?
That's such a great question. I what I like to do often is like spend a lot of time on brainstorming solutions with the group that is like articulating the problem. And so giving folks a lot of space to propose solutions, like what do they think could solve this problem, and then running those through that cutting the issue criteria list to say which of these meet these criteria, these solutions, which of these solutions are deeply felt by people in this room, which solutions are widely felt by people in this room, which of these solutions are we clear about how to make it happen, which of these solutions will help us build long-term power, which of these solutions will help us move towards developing leadership in this group of people here in this room along the way, right? So there are, I think, like 15 or 16 criteria in that slide. And I think that like the process of moving from problem to issue is something that you should take as much time with as you need. It might be a couple of meetings. It might even be more than that. It might be a series of like community listening sessions where you go to different neighborhoods and ask the same people the same questions to figure out which solutions are moving people the most. What solutions do they have to offer? Are there solutions that keep coming up in every conversation where, you know, folks are on the same page about what really needs to happen? So I think that's the real job of organizers, is to listen well and clearly, and try to not be biased by what we want to see happen personally, and to really hear what the community needs in terms of moving for solutions. And then there's a level of like thinking about strategy as well, which may require like doing some additional research and things like that to figure out the right issue to tackle and what's going to be most strategic. And so while we know that like the expertise is with the people and in the room, it doesn't mean that we don't also do our homework to figure out, well, oh, guess what? We went and did some research and came back together to talk about the problem and the solutions again. And here's what I found out. I found out that City Council actually has this on their agenda for next week. Or I found out that somebody is collecting signatures for a ballot initiative that is maybe going to qualify for the November ballot. And so that might inform how we choose the issue that we focus on as well.
Thanks, Nana. That makes a lot of sense. And I put in the chat, you know, that this is the phrase that I actually first heard from you about moving at the speed of trust. You know, as we're developing trust and as we're listening to our community, that is showing them that we are not just sort of showing up with our pre-planned ideas, but are part of the community and thinking with them.
Yes, and I want to shout out another incredible human here, Adrienne Marie Brown, who really talks about moving at the speed of trust as an important part of our organizing work.
Anyone else have, yeah, sorry, questions for Nina?
Yes, part of being organized is understanding and listening is a critical, is it not, to other people, not just in the group, but outside in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. And thanks for bringing that up. Is it Maria or Jamaica?
Yes. I prefer Jamaica though.
Okay, cool. I'll call you what you prefer. So yes, Jamaica, that's absolutely right. So, you know, even even as a PWN chapter, we don't want to be making assumptions about what the rest of our community needs, whether that community is like our neighbors or the other people living with HIV who are also getting services at this clinic or in this like, you know, in this TGA or EMA or this like Brian White jurisdiction. We don't want to make assumptions that any of us have the answers to the problem. The community has the answers. So yes, you're absolutely right that like we don't want to go in and be like, hey, we're gonna like run this campaign. Will you come along with us? We will do that at some point, but the best way to get to unpacking what that campaign really should be is to listen first and see, what do we all think about this problem? How does this problem show up for us? What are the problems, right? What are the problems we're facing? Which of these problems are most important? And then what ideas do we have about how to solve them? And then thinking, maybe then going with your group of like your chapter to say, based on what we heard, here's what we think we're hearing. And then checking back with that group, here's what we thought we heard. We heard from you that these are some of the priorities. Is this right? What ideas do you have about how to solve this? And then that's when the research phase could come in, or like starting to design a campaign could come in, and you can come back to them and be like, hey, now here's some of the things we found out about this problem and the solutions that you identified and what could be strategic for us to focus on. Based on this, let's talk about it again. Where do y'all think we should put our energy together? That's because that's how we bring folks in and make sure that we're creating a shared vision for where we're moving. And then we also want to think about giving people meaningful roles in our organizing strategies too. So not just being like, okay, now you told us what to do, we're going to go run with it, because the folks told us what was important to them. They told us how they want to solve it, and now how do they want to be involved and engaged?
That's that opening community. That's that opening communication that I struggle with sometimes, is communicating what's going on in the community, how to attack the problem and how to deal with it, and so on.
Yeah, and I know LaTanya talked about that a little bit too, is like engaging folks, bringing them in, recruitment. One resources I would point y'all to that I know PWN offers from time to time is a training in one-on-ones. One-on-ones are an organizing strategy, an organizing skill. Can anybody on here explain what a one-on-one is?
I think we're having one tomorrow night.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, one-on-ones is actually being able to have a community, have a dialect or a dialogue with someone, and get on the same level. Try to figure out ways where you can connect with that person and get them talking and feeling comfortable with you, and then finding the connection between what they're saying that they want and you trying to get to your ask of what you want them to do. But first, getting on the same wavelength. Hey, we're both soccer moms. Hey, we're, finding that connection, that place where we connect, so it doesn't look like the only reason I'm here is to get you to come to my activity. You kind of build on it. It's a part of relational organizing, and it's another part of connecting people one-on-one to do more for the greater good or for that next.
Yeah, I think all of that is great, and how perfect that y'all are having a training coming up. So hopefully people see that link Crystal just dropped in the chat and can join that training. And the only thing I'll add to what Angela said is that one-on-ones are also an important source of us getting more data and trying to be unbiased. So we're not always there to move an agenda. Like we might have an ask that we want to plug kind of towards the end, but a big part of one-on-ones is really listening, just like any, if you've ever done like any case management or reflective listening or active listening or motivational counseling or anything like that. Like part of what we're really trying to do is just learn about how's our community doing, and what's going on for folks and what's important to them. What do they want to see change, and what are they willing to do to be part of that change? Right? Like that's part of what we're trying to get to with one-on-ones. And there, in today's world, there's so much focus on sort of like quick action, digital organizing, like transactional organizing, where we like, can everybody send, an email, and we can generate like 500 emails to this congressperson or something like that. But organizing is always going to be most powerful when it's about people, person to person. A personal conversation, when people feel personally invested. There's like a million folks on your phone, right, asking you to do things like donate to the Democratic Party or take this survey or whatever it is. That's really not meaningful in the same way that somebody who cares about you, who's like your neighbor, is like, I'm calling to check on you, and like, how are you doing? How are you feeling about these, what's on your mind about what's going on in our community, or what's on your mind about some of this news we just heard that was really jarring? What's on your mind about that? What do you want to see us do about that? That's the deep work that we want to do to create the world we want together.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions, comments, ideas?
Well, I heard you speak, this is Love again. I heard you speak about connection, and well, I think one of my biggest challenges is I'm a woman of trans experience, and working with the trans community, a lot of the trans community folks face a lot of different social determinants issues. And so I think the only way that I've noticed that they really connect is through everybody's in survival mode, and so it's kind of I've been finding it kind of challenging to get people to connect on a different level besides just thinking about survival, because it's still almost like what it feels like is where we get on a good track, and then it's almost like a crabs in a bucket kind of situation where if you're trying to get out of that bucket, somebody's pulling you back down, and it can be really challenging. And so I would love to kind of sit down and kind of strategize with someone to kind of figure out different strategies or any other things that could kind of move the community along. But I know when people have been traumatized in a great deal way, I think different strategy has to be used to kind of handle different situations. I'm sure a lot of people don't understand what most people of trans experience go through, and it can be really challenging, just everyday living. So I think we may have to relook at some of the strategies we use just for normal or everyday situations.
Yeah, thank you so much, Love, for bringing that into the conversation. And I think you're exactly right on. And that thank you for that offering and reflection that we need to think differently about what kind of strategies get used. And I think part of what would be really juicy is to think about what some of those strategies might be and what it really looks like to care for and support healing and support survival and safety when we are when we're organizing with communities who are at the intersection of so many different forms of harm and danger and violence. And so like organizing can also look like having a meal together and like having a meal together and creating safety and sanctuary in ways that allow us to think together and dream together about what we want to create. And I know that there have been a lot of there's been a lot of amazing and beautiful organizing, so much led by women of trans experience and people of trans experience. And I also want to invite anyone else who's on here if they want to share anything in response to what Love shared as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I see Selena's hand, but in response to what Love shared, and even something I was hearing Jamaica share, what I heard y'all talk about is really how close you are to the issue. And sometimes that makes organizing hard or even unsafe. That's what you didn't say it in that way, but I heard y'all talk about like being so close to the issue that sometimes it's just hard to organize. It's hard to see the vision. It's hard to create a strategy. I would like to like hear more about like how to navigate that. Um, it, I don't know, Nana, if you have thoughts on how to navigate that, but that's something that I wanted to name that I'm hearing. And I don't know, Love, you can tell Love in Jamaica, y'all can tell me if I'm right. I think that's what sometimes makes it hard to communicate or connect with people too. Being so close to the issue and working in a community that is also like so impacted, like it's kind of, I don't know, you're dealing with different forms of violence because the community is so, I guess, oppressed or under attack. So,
Yeah, in a nutshell, you're kind of hitting on the nail. It's just I guess like the biggest challenge is like I was stating, everybody is in survival mode. And so it's just like, you know, and everybody can be easily triggered because they've been traumatized so much. And that's why I say it's going to take some different strategies. I'm not sure what it really is going to take. Like I said, I'm sure I would love to sit down and kind of like try to think about if even if sitting down with a therapist to kind of understand different gateways or different ideas of how to move through the process. But our community has been traumatized in a great deal way, and the normal organizing is not going to it's not working. And I don't know, maybe that's hard for some people to understand if you're not of trans experience. But it's something that I deal with daily.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense, Love. And definitely, I think it's something that we can maybe talk about a little bit more on some of the future sessions as well. Thank you for lifting that up.
Yeah.
I can stay for maybe one more question or comment, but I actually have to like get on the road to drive somewhere. I'm on a road trip.
Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all. I added something that I'm dealing with me, and I wanted to share with everyone else. We talk about grounding in the beginning and stuff, but a lot of us not understanding grounding. It's a lot of mental, oh, how would I say it? Other things going on, but you start with you first. You can't really reach out to community when you're not reaching out to each other. If that makes any sense.
It totally makes sense. Yeah. Yep. I think that's absolutely right. And it's also I'm hearing a lot around this theme of like how healing connects to organizing in different ways, including creating spaces that are safe and healing for our communities. Also cultivating healing with ourselves around because these issues and problems that we're working on are very painful and they're really traumatic. You know, like we have experienced personal trauma and community trauma and collective trauma over these things that we're organizing on. And the world is violent towards our communities. And our, you know, folks are getting up every day and dealing with that. And so thinking about how we support healing of ourselves and each other, and also how we don't reproduce harm in organizing spaces, I think is so important. So definitely something we can talk about more. And I also don't know if there are any, you know, trainings or anything coming up at PWN about healing in organizing, but I know that's another body of work that PWN has been focusing on as well, is how to uplift and center healing in organizing spaces. I did see Selena's hand and just want to make sure we get your question or comment, Selena, before I have to hop.
I'm gonna keep it quick, Miss Anna. How you doing? Um, Happy Tuesday. The reason I wanted to just really quick, I'm advocating for my apartment complex, and this complex is for people living with HIV. And I've been there 7 years now, and they really need help with being handicap accessible. And I've had got signatures from my I developed signatures from my neighbors. I went to City Hall about it and spoke at City Hall about it. Um, Talked to other, people uh, from the state capital, about it, and still nothing's being done. So I don't know what to do. I try to gather up my neighbors to show up as a united front, but they're scared because they're afraid of retaliation. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out a way I can mobilize, and get a have a united front so we can advocate. I can, help advocate for this. So that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that, organizing, Selena. I'm curious if that is something that you've brought to your chapter at all to get some thought partnership around and strategies around.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I did talk about it. Still trying to figure out a way to get that done. 'Cause it's been like a lot of like some roadblocks to that. Because the apartment complex is labeled a historical building. So certain things can be done to it. Because it's a historical building, some can't be done to it, like extra repairs or things that can be done to it. And I was thinking about just adding to it, just adding without
Yeah.
messing up the structure. So this way's around it. It really is. But just trying to organize and get my neighbors to really, really get involved. So just that part is really frustrating me because they're
Yeah.
afraid of retaliation.
Well, I think this is a great example of where it might be useful to think about how to cut the issue, um, because maybe there's a different kind of solution to the problem. Like maybe I don't, obviously without knowing all the specifics of the scenario, but
Yes.
perhaps there's like an organization or entity that has a contract with that building to provide these units, and maybe that contract needs to be with a different building that can provide what's actually needed. Maybe there are some ways to think about that and approach it in a minimally disruptive way for the folks who live there. So exactly, Angela. Yep. Helping them find another building that's up to code, making them relocate folks, thinking about really strategically about the demands because relocation is disruptive. So is there also like an amount of money that every resident should get? It's as part of that relocation. and other types of like support on relocation that they should get as part of that relocation. So I would really think about how to cut that issue and frame a solution here as
Okay.
well.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yes, and I
Thank you so much
apologize,
for that.
but I do have to hop off. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No problem.
A couple extra hands, but I'm also going to just drop my contact information in case anybody wants to follow up with me.
Thank you, Nana. Appreciate that. Thanks for the advice. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Nana, for being on. We really appreciate all of your wisdom, connection, as well as your PWN love that we have been able to share and bring you back in to lift up with us. Safe travels. We're going to let you go. Jessica, I can hang out for another 5 minutes if you want to talk, but Nana, we're going to let you hop because we know that you have some miles to go before you sleep.
Thank you all so much. I'll see you next week. Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
Nana.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
Good night.